We've all experienced hurt in our lives, but there's a difference between hurt and trauma. Trauma isn't just what happens to you, it's also what happens you as a result of what happened to you. It lingers, it reshapes your thoughts, your relationships, even the way you interpret the world. And here's the thing about trauma. The effects aren't always obvious. They don't always show up as panic attacks, nightmares, or flashbacks, though they certainly can. Often they show up in behaviors that seem normal, even socially acceptable. But underneath, they're rooted in past wounds. In this video, we're exploring 7 common things that people with unresolved trauma often do. These behaviors are usually survival strategies, clever, adaptive mechanisms developed during a time of intense emotional stress. But as life moves on, what once helped them survive can start to hinder their growth. This is not about labeling or diagnosing, it's about understanding. Because when we understand the deeper reasons behind these patterns, we can bring empathy to ourselves and to others, and begin the work of healing. Let's begin with the first. Have you ever been around someone who apologizes constantly? And I mean for the smallest things, like bumping into someone at the grocery store, and instead of them saying "excuse me," they immediately blurt out, "I'm so sorry, that was my fault," even though it clearly wasn't. Or picture someone saying sorry when they express a valid opinion, when they ask for help, or when they're simply trying to speak in a group setting. This constant apologizing can be a sign of unresolved trauma. You see, when someone grows up in an environment where they were frequently blamed, criticized, or made to feel unsafe, they learn to apologize as a way to diffuse tension, to avoid conflict, to make themselves smaller and less likely to be a target. Over time, this habit of over-apologizing becomes ingrained. It becomes a reflex, an automatic response to any perceived misstep, no matter how small. And while it might have served them well in the past, as a way to navigate a difficult or dangerous environment, in the present, it can keep them stuck. It can prevent them from setting healthy boundaries, from speaking their truth, from taking up space in the world. Because every time they apologize unnecessarily, they're essentially diminishing themselves, shrinking back from who they are and what they deserve. Trust. It's the foundation of any healthy relationship, whether it's with a partner, a friend, a family member, or even ourselves. But for someone with trauma, especially relational trauma, trust is a minefield. Imagine walking through a field, knowing there are hidden landmines scattered beneath the surface. Every step is tentative, every movement calculated. You're constantly on edge, waiting for the explosion. That's what it can feel like for someone who's been deeply hurt by someone they loved or depended on. Even in the most loving, supportive relationships, they might hold back, fearing that at any moment things could fall apart. They're always on edge, waiting for the kindness to disappear, for the affection to fade, for the betrayal to come. It's not that they don't trust, it's that their nervous system, their very being, has learned that trust can be dangerous. They've learned that love can be weaponized, that vulnerability can be exploited, that the people who are supposed to protect you are sometimes the ones you need protection from. So they build walls, they keep people at arm's length, they guard their hearts fiercely, even when it hurts to do so. Because for them, it feels safer to be alone than to risk being hurt again. We've all had those moments where we zone out during a boring meeting, or our minds wander while we're doing a repetitive task. That's normal. But for someone with trauma, dissociation can be a much more intense and frequent experience. It's like their mind and body have an escape hatch, a way to detach from overwhelming emotions or stressful situations. It's a coping mechanism, a way to survive the unbearable. Imagine for a moment feeling like you're watching yourself from outside your body, like you're in a dream, or like the world around you isn't quite real. That's dissociation. It can manifest in many ways. Some people describe it as feeling numb, empty, or disconnected from their surroundings. Others might experience memory problems, forgetting chunks of time or entire conversations. And for some, dissociation can involve losing track of their identity, feeling like they're multiple people trapped inside one body. It's a way to cope with overwhelming emotions, a way to shut down when the world feels too intense, too painful to bear. It's a survival mechanism, but it can also be incredibly isolating, because when you're constantly disconnecting from yourself and your experiences, it's hard to feel truly alive, truly present in your own life. Life is full of uncertainty. It's one of the few guarantees we have. But for someone who's experienced trauma, uncertainty can be terrifying. It can trigger feelings of helplessness, powerlessness, and fear. Think about it, trauma is often the result of having control ripped away, whether it's through abuse, neglect, a natural disaster, or violence. So it's no wonder that many trauma survivors develop coping mechanisms that revolve around control, or conversely, avoidance. Some become incredibly controlling of their environment and their relationships. They need to know what's happening, when it's happening, and how it's going to happen. They might micromanage others, have rigid routines, or avoid situations that feel unpredictable or outside of their control. This need for control is their way of creating a sense of safety in a world that feels chaotic and unpredictable. On the other hand, some survivors cope with uncertainty through avoidance. They avoid anything that might trigger memories or feelings associated with the trauma. This could mean avoiding certain people, places, activities, or even their own emotions. They might numb themselves with work, substances, or distractions. Both control and avoidance, while understandable coping mechanisms, can ultimately keep a person stuck in the past. Have you ever met someone who's always taking care of everyone else but themselves? They're the helper, the fixer, the one everyone leans on in a crisis. They're incredibly compassionate, empathetic, and attuned to the needs of others. But often, they have no idea what they want or need themselves. When asked, what do need, they might draw a blank. This selflessness, while often perceived as a strength, can actually be a sign of unresolved trauma. Growing up in an environment where their own needs weren't met, or where their emotions were dismissed or invalidated, they learned to focus on others as a way to survive. By becoming indispensable, by making themselves useful, they could secure a sense of belonging, of worthiness, of love, even if it was conditional. They become experts at reading people, at anticipating needs, at soothing emotional storms. But they often neglect their own emotional well-being. They push their own needs aside, telling themselves they'll deal with them later. But later rarely comes. Over time, this pattern of self-neglect takes its toll. It can lead to burnout, resentment, and a deep sense of emptiness. When we think of flashbacks, we often picture vivid memories like scenes from a movie, replaying in our minds. But for many trauma survivors, flashbacks are less about what they see and more about what they. Imagine being suddenly flooded with intense emotions, fear, shame, panic, rage, seemingly out of nowhere. There's no logical explanation, no apparent trigger. One minute you're fine, going about your day, and the next minute you're back in that moment feeling all the same emotions as if it were happening all over again. That's an emotional flashback. It's the body's way of responding to a perceived threat, even if the threat is no longer present. These flashbacks can be triggered by seemingly insignificant things. A certain smell, a sound, a song, a phrase, even a particular tone of voice. Something in the present unconsciously activates a memory or a feeling from the past, sending the nervous system into high alert. These intense reactions can be confusing and frightening, not just for the person experiencing them, but also for those around them. It's important to remember that these reactions are not intentional. They're not signs of weakness or instability, they're the body's way of trying to protect itself from further harm. One of the most heartbreaking aspects of unresolved trauma is its tendency to repeat itself not in the exact same ways, but in eerily familiar patterns. It's like an unconscious script that keeps getting replayed, even when we know the ending is going to hurt. This repetition compulsion, as it's called, can show up in all areas of life. Relationships, careers, even our inner dialogue. We might find ourselves attracting the same types of partners, ending up in the same dysfunctional dynamics, or sabotaging ourselves right before we're about to achieve something good. Why does this happen? Because our brains are wired for survival, and sometimes survival means clinging to what's familiar, even if it's also painful. When we grow up in environments that are chaotic, unpredictable, or unsafe, our nervous systems learn to adapt to that chaos. We develop coping mechanisms that help us navigate that specific environment. The problem is, these same coping mechanisms, while effective in the past, often become maladaptive in the present. They keep us stuck in cycles of pain, preventing us from experiencing the love, connection, and joy we deserve. If you saw yourself in any of these behaviors, if something resonated deeply with you, I want you to know that you're not alone. Trauma doesn't define you. It's a part of your story, but it's not the whole book. The behaviors we've discussed, the over-apologizing, the difficulty trusting, the dissociation, the control struggles, the people-pleasing, the emotional flashbacks, the toxic repetition, they are character flaws. They are evidence of how strong you had to be to survive. But survival is not the same as living. Healing is possible, not by erasing the past, but by understanding it, by turning inward with compassion, by noticing these patterns not with shame but with curiosity, and by building new, healthier ways of relating to yourself and to the world around you. You are not broken, you are not beyond repair, you are carrying the weight of something heavy, and you've done so with incredible strength, and now you have the opportunity to put it down.